Well, I'm going to piss off everybody with this one. But if you want to hear the truth, stay on. And if you can't watch all the way to the end, click off now. Hi, I'm Maggie. I'm a licensed clinical psychotherapist. I have degrees in psychology, theology, and marriage and family therapy, and a national certification in dialectical behavioral therapy. In this video, I'm not seeking to diagnose anyone. I'm only willing to offer insight into situations like these. First, let's So the first thing that he says is, I know women, modern women, going through what they call a hoe phase. Hoe phase meaning they're going to use this opportunity in their life to explore their sexuality, have as many sexual experiences as they see fit, and then miraculously, after all of that experience and knowledge, they're somehow going to move past that phase. Let's just imagine there was a man who said something to the effect of, he had a gay phase, and he had all those experiences that went along with that lifestyle. But now, all of a sudden, he turns the corner and he's no longer gay. We look at him and say, no, no, we don't believe you. Likewise, we should not believe women when they say or have said or will say, I'm going through my hoe phase. I went through my hoe phase, but now I'm done. The truth is, you never outgrow that sort of mentality, and you can never outlive those experiences, and you can never unsee what you've seen, and you can never undo what you've done. His next statement was, "At the end of the day, there's damage that has been done to this person. At the end of the day, as far as women is concerned, is damaged. All those men had access to you. The whole point of being an attractive woman, the more attractive you are, the more likely you are, we assume, the more likely you are, less men be able to have access to you. We also assume that the more attractive you are, the higher quality man you could have. So when you see an attractive hoe or attractive prostitute that everybody has had access to, it makes her less attractive. It makes her, the access is so easy, there's nothing special about her. The whole point of womanhood, the whole point of wanting to be with the woman who is exclusive is because of the value that she carries as a woman who hasn't had sexual partners. If she hasn't had a lot of sexual partners, is deemed to be a woman who is reserved. She's more like a prize. It's like passing around a cup of water. After about the fifth person, you're looking at the water trying to figure out what's in it by way of backwash.
Whole math, bitches.
So let's look at the good girl. So we have Pamela. She's 25. Her age of sexual onset was 17. So from age 17 to 19, she had a monogamous boyfriend. That puts her body count at 1. And estimating low based on research, which will be tagged at the end, she's had 1,248 penetrative encounters. Now, because research also shows that women in this age group tend to use condoms 100% of the time, she has had 0 deposits. Then from age 20 to 22, she had 2 failed dating stages, one at 3 months and one at 6 months. So this added 2 to her body count. She had 13 and 26 penetrative sexual encounters. But because research shows that women in this age bracket use condoms about 59% of the time, she had 5.278 deposits and 10.556 deposits. Then from ages 23 to 24, she had another monogamous boyfriend. This added 1 to the body count. Now I'm keeping the body count at 4 because from what I've heard, a body count under 5 means a good girl. But this monogamous boyfriend added 624 penetrative sexual encounters, again, estimating low for the age group, and added 253.344 deposits. Now, if we look at the deposits and how much sperm weighs or how much a deposit weighs when it is made, that means that she's had almost half a pound of deposit in her, and she has had sex 1,911 times, but we are only focusing on the body count of 4. All right, let's look at Andrea, who's had hoe phase. She's also age 25. She also had her sexual onset at 17. So from ages 17 to 19, she was having a hoe phase. Now these numbers are done a little bit different on the body count because what research shows is that when women go through that phase, they will tend to have a couple regulars and then they will have casual sex about twice a month. So when we look at the body count, there's 2 and 24, and then encounters are 24 and 24, and that's actually estimating high for casual sex. But again, because research shows that women in this age bracket use condoms 100% of the time, the deposits are 0. Now I want to put in here, if you know of someone who didn't use a condom, it doesn't mean that the research is invalid. It's almost 100% of the time. So then if we look at ages 20 to 22, she tried dating, same. She had 2 failed dating stages, one at 3 months, one at 6 months. That adds 2 to the body count. That's 13 and 26 for encounters, but we start having the deposits because of what research shows about condoms. So on deposits, we have 5.278 and 10.556. Then from ages 23 to 24, she has another hoe phase, or what we would call casual sex. So we do the body count the same because it's 1 year. So we have 1 and 12, and then 12 and 12, estimating high. That's deposits of 4.872 twice. Then from ages 24 to 25, she's practicing celibacy, saying that she's over her hoe phase. So we have zeros across the board. Now, if we look at this, her body count is 41, which people would say that's a hoe, and once a hoe, always a hoe. But her encounters are only 111 compared to 1,911 for the good girl. And then if we look at the amount, it's 27.952 grams of a deposit. Okay, lastly, let's look at someone who would be considered a hoe. This is Monica. She is 25. Her age of sexual onset is also 17. But from ages 17 to 25, she only practiced casual sex. So again, using the same body count of regulars versus casual sex, we have 2 and 96 in the body count. We have 96 and 96 estimating high in the encounters, with deposits of 38.976 and 38.976. Now, the body count is 98, which would be considered what people would call a hoe, but the encounters are only 192. That's penetrative encounters at 192, compared to the good girl who had 1,000. Okay, that's a good segue to something else the creator said. He said, and addition to that, there's an issue with being able to pair bond. Women have sex with so many men, after a while they become numb to it or the attraction that women have to men. Women who have had too many partners is that a man is able to please her in a way that other men haven't. And so when she sees him, she sees those good feelings that she had with him in the intimate fashion. If you have a woman who's had multiple partners, then for the most part, you know she's numb. And when I mean her walls are blown out, so she's unable to pair bond. She's unable to. She's so many men to the point that she's numb. She doesn't see you any different than any other guy, whether you're married to her, whether you're providing a stable lifestyle, or maybe there's some bond associated with a man who's had children with her. a piece of this, and that females will be unable to pair bond. And actually, what they found was that wasn't it.
Home out, bitches.
The females vaginas. Now, not only can we reference back to the spreadsheet that shows that the good girl being in monogamous relationships had a whole bunch more sex, the vagina is elastic. It can accommodate tampons, sex toys, penises, and a baby's head. The larger the object may cause some changes, but the vagina itself returns to normal size. During sexual arousal, a woman's vaginal muscles relax and lubrication starts to form. So when they're tight, maybe they're not aroused.
Home out, bitches.
Now, some things do affect vaginal elasticity, which would be things like vaginal prolapse, vaginal atrophy, gynecological cancer, but not sex, according to research.
Home out, bitches.
Now, what we may be discussing are the pelvic floor muscles because those surround the vagina. Now, there are things that can weaken the pelvic floor muscles, which are holding your breath, slouching, tight fitting clothes, blowing your nose while seated on the toilet. He says, because she can't like you as much as she would want to like you or what biology intended. And the biology intended for her to like you. So you have to resort to what's left in the material world. The more the woman demands of you for your time and relationship, the less she likes you. It's one thing to be a provider. You provide a home, you provide stability, you provide food, you provide transportation. It's another thing when a woman is constantly making demands on you for extravagant things. That's it. That's a telltale sign of the if you always have to take this woman to five-star restaurants, four-star hotels, and take first class trips to A1 spots, more likely than not, she doesn't like you. She's merely tolerating you. And in her mind, she's telling herself that maybe I don't like him, but I'm going to stay with him for the material wealth that he's providing. And unfortunately, if a woman doesn't like you, more likely than not, she's never going to like you. The biggest cop out is, I love him, but I'm not in love with him anymore. That just means she don't like you. And the minute you detect those sort of feelings, recognize it. It might be time to move on. But more importantly, you're dealing with a woman who's had a lot more experience and she's seeking to shed the shackles of whatever relationship you have. Move on. You can never satisfy a woman who is a whore, who has been a hoe. You can't do it, right? Let's look at the research. Unfortunately, there isn't any.
Whole mouth, bitches.
There's no research to show. Perspective. And if we relate that to our psyche, we can see how that's true. All right, guys, what do you think? Did you like?
Whole mouth, bitches.
Let me know in the comments.